If tiredness is like, oh, my car is running low on gas and I have to figure out the logistics behind the time to go to the Costco gas station, wait in the Costco line, fill up gas, and then move forward, that's what tiredness is. Burnout is your tank is empty, you're stuck on the side of the road, and oh, by the way, you haven't been keeping up with like the upkeep of your car and your engine's about to break down. So yeah, your car is gonna have to get towed to the shop. It's gonna probably spend a week there. Not only does it need gas, but it needs internal work. And then when you get your car back, you have to keep up with filling it up with gas, recharging it, and keeping up with maintenance so you prevent that burnout.
And I love that. And I think that really conceptualized the main difference, because the fact that it's more permanent, that it feels like you have to get back to something. And I love that you talked about when you get back that car, you got to maintain and upkeep. And that is why you can fall deeper into the burnout. So what are some practical, maybe science-backed strategies that parents can use to shift from just surviving to thriving in their parenting journey and combating burnout?
I think the most undervalued and overlooked thing is the ability to take and build in micro breaks. So when we think about breaks, we talk about them in a macro level: vacations, spa days, a girl's night out, a parent's night out. But to work to the point of burnout until those periods of time is not what we're trying to do. We're trying to prevent so we can enjoy those vacations, not only use it to reset, recharge, and go back to the same environment that caused the burnout in the first place. And so these micro breaks can be anything from 3 to 15-minute breaks that are built in throughout your day. And during those breaks, you are performing tasks that are resetting or recharging your nervous system.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the PedsDocTalk podcast. Remember to hit that subscribe button and comment if you love this episode. That is how we can get the show out to more people. And also, if you like to listen instead, you can go on our podcast wherever you access podcasts, download the episodes, leave reviews, because we want this episode and this show to reach more people. Today's guest is a friend of mine in real life and on social media, and we're finally connecting for her to be on my show. And her name is Dr. Flora Sinha, a menopause certified internist, mindset coach for women, mom, and podcast host of the Beyond podcast. In her mindset coaching and podcast, her goal is to help women get out of ruts by guiding them on building boundaries, better communication styles, and build a foundation of tools and techniques to prevent burnout and be the best version of themselves. And don't you think that is something that could be very useful in mothering as well? And she's joining me to talk about parenting burnout, science-backed strategies to thrive and not just survive. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Mona, for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I am so excited. We are connecting after finally meeting in person
Yes.
at the Pinnacle Conference last year, 2024. I'm like already losing track of years. This has been such a great, connection. Obviously, you are a physician by training. You have a passion for doing more than just being a physician. You're taking all the things that you see and having a passion for mindset coaching. And on your Instagram, Dr. Flora Sinha, which I will be attaching, and also on your podcast, you are bringing in so much more that people can be healthier versions of themselves, body and mind. And so I really appreciate the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. This is my purpose. And it's something that I apply to not only my own patients, but realize that you don't have to see a medical doctor to build on yourself and approach your self-growth journey in the way we're doing now.
And it's so important. I know we're talking about how this applies to parenting burnout. And I know you focus on not just parenting, but also just burnout in general. And why it's so important to me is that it connects, right? Obviously, if you're burnt out at work, it's going to show up in parenting. If you're burnt out as a parent, it's going to show up in your work. So, what would be
Absolutely.
something that you hope our listeners get from today by the
Yeah.
end of the episode?
Yeah, I just want your listeners to have faith and know that there are science backed, proven strategies that they can use and build upon to not only prevent but beat burnout. I think as parents, sometimes we face this sense of like loss of identity when we
Hmm.
become parents. And by giving back to yourself in whatever ways, which we will talk about during this episode, and making these small habitual changes, you can not only survive as a parent, but you can thrive as an individual as well. And they both go hand in hand.
Oh, completely agree with that. And that loss of identity, that loss of time, the things that you may have loved, those all impact how we can show up. And I know, I've been on your podcast talking about this as well. It's so key so that we can have all parts of our life live together in harmony versus trying to create friction between all of it. What does parenting burnout look like, and how can parents differentiate between normal exhaustion, which we all have at the end of the day, or
Yes.
true burnout?
Right. Okay. So tiredness is temporary. Exhaustion to a certain point is temporary. So, for example, if your kid is going through a sleep regression, or if you're in the season of newborn life, you're sleep deprived, you're having rough nights. For the most part, most of us can rally through the day with that extra cup of coffee, a nap. Maybe that might take a couple of days to kind of prioritize yourself. And then you're back to your baseline ready to go. Now, burnout is very different. Burnout is a chronic state of physical, mental, emotional exhaustion that is caused by prolonged periods of stress, prolonged periods of not being or feeling supported, and really just putting yourself last for a very long time. It doesn't go away with just a simple cup of coffee, a good night's rest, a week-long vacation, because if you are coming back to the same scenario, the same events, the same triggering things, you're going to go back to your burnout journey. So, burnout is this sense of dread that
Hmm.
you feel for routine activities. So, going to support your kid at their soccer game, or just routine pickup and drop offs to school, and you've lost the sense of joy in these mundane things. Like, we don't normally wake up being like, I can't wait to take my kid to school today,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it is something that we're not dreading to a certain
Right.
extent. And the solution to burnout requires a deeper change from within. So, building boundaries, improving on your communication styles, learning how to seek support, delegate if you have the ability to delegate, and then really reevaluating your expectations on yourself and practicing those mindset shifts and building upon that to gain balance. So, if tiredness is like, oh, my car is running low on gas and I have to figure out the logistics behind the time to go to the Costco gas station, wait in the Costco line, fill up gas, and then move forward, that's what tiredness is. Burnout is your tank is empty, you're stuck on the side of the road, and oh, by the way, you haven't been keeping up with like the upkeep of your car and your engine's about to break down. So, yeah, your car is going to have to get towed to the shop. It's going to probably spend a week there. Not only does it need gas, but it needs internal work. And then when you get your car back, you have to keep up with filling it up with gas, recharging it if you have an electric car like I do, and keeping up with maintenance so you prevent that burnout. So that's kind of the overall difference between the two.
I am a fan of analogies, especially when it has to do with cars. Can you tell me why? I think like the car analogy, if we can get a car analogy for everything, it's so tangible because
It
everyone,
is.
well, has either had a car, has been in a car, and I
Yeah.
love that. And I think that really conceptualized the main difference because the perseverance of it, the fact that it's more permanent, that it feels like
Yeah.
you have to get back to something. And I love that you talked about when you get back that car, you got to maintain and upkeep. And that is why you can fall deeper into the burnout if you are just treating it like, okay, well, this is not anything that I have to be aware of. Now, I guess my biggest question is, where is that fine line between, is this burnout, but is this like a depression,
Mental
anxiety
health.
situation, like a true, yeah, like is it a true mental health or is it burnout? Because I know I have been in situations in my life where I was burnt out, but then I definitely also had those same feelings, right? Like the
Yeah.
detachment, the
Mhm.
overwhelm, the dreading of regular activities,
Mhm.
and it was more that I had depression. So how would you
Yeah.
kinda describe that to the listener who's like, "Well, is this burnout and I can do the strategies that we talk about, or is this something that I need to kinda think about, oh, it's something that is more elevated than this?"
Yeah. So, speaking from personal experience, I do have major depressive disorder, and I'm treated. I go to therapy, and I do all the things. I've also experienced burnout. So, burnout is reversible to a certain extent. So is depression. Let me just say that. But depression is more persistent. Depression seeps into every aspect of your life. The fact that you can't be driven to better yourself in one way or the other, the speaking from personal experience, there was a point in time where thinking about my child and my husband did not take me out of the mindset that I did not want to be here.
Yeah.
That is a telltale sign of depression. Now, on the flip side, high functioning depression and anxiety is a subset under that, meaning you're killing it at work, you are being productive, you are maintaining the household, but you're not content. There's a gut instinct, that internal feeling that
Yeah.
you're not happy and it's not being reversed. Now, sometimes it does take a little bit of trial and error, right? Is this burnout? Is this depression? Is it both? And after, giving after putting yourself up on your priority list, giving yourself time to make sure that you are engaging in burnout prevention activities, if that doesn't improve your quality of life, if that doesn't improve your mood, your sense of self, then it may be time to talk to a clinician, go to your primary care doctor, and seek an objective opinion. I think that would always help. And I think they would also help you differentiate, hey, is this burnout? Do you
Yeah.
really just need to take a break and work into more preventative care action items? Or do we need more resources, a therapist, maybe medication? And is this going to take more time?
I love that because I have had burnout from being a full-time clinician, and like you just said perfectly, that the burnout, it was at that point it wasn't depression because I could leave the burnout. When I left work, I was like, okay,
Yes.
I got to release myself. It's like there was a space where it wasn't going into the other aspects of my life, like you mentioned, and
Yeah.
it was the dread of going back into the workplace, but it wasn't dread of
Yeah.
leaving. It was
Correct.
counting down the hours of, okay, when do I get to go home? But when I was home, I wasn't sad. I wasn't having any issues doing the daily livings, which I think is what is so beautifully the difference here, right? Is like with parenting burnout, you're
Mhm.
doing everything, but it's the parent, the day in and day out of all the parenting
Mhm.
tasks, all of that, you just feel,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, again, or why this? Why am I having to do these drop offs all the time? And that feeling is more persistent than it is temporary because we've all, like you said, had that moment where I think probably yesterday I was like, I don't want to do drop off today. Like,
Yes. Waiting
can
in
I
the
just
valet
can I
line,
just stay
traffic.
in
Yeah.
bed? Like, I don't wanna do it. But yeah, it's not
It's
a persistent
temporary.
thing. It's not burnout, but I have had burnout, I have had depression, and I love the way you're explaining the differences and also advocating for obviously mental health resources, which we both would, given that we're both physicians ourselves who both care about this sort of mindset and mental health stuff. So thank you
Yeah.
for that delineation.
Of course. And I think it's really important to add as parents that it doesn't make us weaker to ask for help. It
Mhm.
doesn't make us less than to delegate simple tasks. Like, look, I don't like laundry. I will do the laundry, but folding, putting it away, I don't know why. It doesn't bring me joy, right? I delegate that shit out and it's okay. Sorry, can I curse on here?
Yeah, yeah, that's okay. We
I
put the warning
delegate
after, sorry. Yeah.
I delegate that out. Again, did my mom do it 24 hours a day, right? She was
Yeah,
a stay-at-home mom raising 3 kids, which I think is one of the hardest jobs in the world and the most undervalued jobs.
yeah.
And growing up seeing all of that, definitely in the beginning, I put guilt and shame on myself. Like, oh, I saw it being done by the mother, right? The mother, if it was my grandma, some maternal figure in my household. Ergo, I should be doing it all too, working, cooking, cleaning, maintaining. But look, unrealistic expectations are going to set you up for failure. So let go a little bit. It's going to take some time and consistency and persistence, but let go a little bit about the guilt, the shame, and prioritize yourself. Put yourself on that list.
Oh, I love that, and I think we'll get into more of that and how that can obviously combat burnout. And what are, in your mind, the most common contributors to parenting burnout, and how do societal expectations play a role in that?
Yeah, I think they go hand in hand, really. First and foremost, the unrealistic expectations and this idea of perfectionism, which I think from a society standpoint links to social media. Even if you are passively engaging, and we've all seen these reels, right? Of like this like beautifully, perfectly clean kitchen and like this perfectly organized refrigerator and like the ASMR stuff where they're like clicking things into place and
Yeah, yeah.
organizing.
Oh, that
And
sounds good though. I love ASMR. I'm like,
oh,
oh,
I
why am I
love it. Don't
I'm
get
so
me wrong.
relaxed? But it's like a lot of work to make that video, and it's not real life. Yes,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Yes, and that's like a 30-second
Yeah.
snapshot, an edited snapshot. But just to say that I think subconsciously that also puts in a lot of
Yeah.
pressure on ourselves, on how we should be presenting ourselves
Mm.
as parents, how we should be presenting ourselves in society, in school. You know those reels where, the perfect looking moms walking in for drop off, and then we got like the mom with like the coffee and the hairnet and the robe. They're both moms, okay? Can
Yeah.
we just, overall labels, they're both parents going in to drop off their children regardless of how they look like. So this unrealistic expectation of perfectionism is automatically setting us up for failure. There is no such thing. We are not robots. We are humans and we need to treat ourselves as so. And and neglecting our own needs to aim for perfection, we're setting ourselves up for failure, and that leads to disappointment and burnout, right? Because we're trying to do everything all at once. I think the second thing, and this kind of it goes hand in hand, um, the emotional labor
Yeah.
that regardless of what role you play in your family, as let's go by stereotype, right? Gendered norms. Moms are seen as the caregiver, as the household managers, as the default decision makers. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've gotten emails just to me from school when both my husband and I are on the contact list. And then on the flip side, the fathers of the household, again, all stereotypically, get this unneeded pressure to provide and also be emotionally available. Like, we
Yeah.
can't be all the things to everyone all the time.
Yeah.
And so, cutting ourselves some slack and making our own box. I think we all grew up with these. Checklists and these check boxes that we need to fulfill in order to seek and be content and be happy. And as we go through life, obviously we are making our own check boxes. So don't forget to do that as a parent. It's not a one size fits all, and contentment and satisfaction looks different for everybody. And I think the third thing is the lack of structural support in our society. Parenting can feel very isolating, but when
Yeah.
you add on um, inadequate leave policies, expensive childcare, limited access to mental health resources, or stigma against it, it really does put this crazy amount of pressure on all of us as parents to do all the things. But we do need support. And I think, again, that's more on a macro level, and we have a lot of work to do on that. But there are ways to work within the system that we have been living in.
I love, what you said about social media and our ability to peer into the lives of everyone. And I don't. I obviously am very organic on my social. I don't sugarcoat anything. I don't put things away that are around my house. And the amount of times people message me like, "Thank you for showing a lived-in home," and I'm
Yes.
like, what? Like, in my head, I'm like, "What do you want me to do? I'm not gonna clean for you guys." But I put, like, I don't even clean for guests. So, no, but it's, like, because I have 2 small children, and I mean, I
Yeah.
grew up in a house that everything was put away, and that's
Yes.
kinda what it was, but I love having a lived-in home, and, that
Yeah.
means, like, a bunch of random assortment of items on our coffee table, right? Or toys that are just kinda strewn about, like, and I don't clean until the weekend's over, and yes, our children help, Ryan helps me clean sometimes and at the end of the day, but there's some things that we just leave out because it's just
Of course.
we're using it all the time. And
Of
I,
course.
I when I get so many of those messages repetitively, I'm like, wow, you are probably, I don't know who you're following, but like if that is what you're not seeing, that is very problematic. And I love that you brought up the conversation about how there's two moms, right? There's a mom that may dress up nice and there's a mom that may wear the hair up in a pony and like, have a coffee mug. And both of them are moms, and so I'm never here to say that the mom who likes to dress up is any that she shouldn't do that, right? And I think that's also, some people just like to dress up, and if
Mhm.
that's what brings them joy, and it's not because they're doing it for anybody else, but they like it for themselves, amazing. But I always want us to be looking at the intention of all of the things we're doing. Are we doing it because it's something that I want to do, or are we doing it because I think I should be doing it? And my
Yes.
thing is like, if you are doing something and you couldn't talk about it or post it on social media, would you still do that? So
Yeah.
if you dressed up for the morning, but you couldn't show anyone what you're wearing, and if you couldn't tell anyone what you wore, would you still dress up? Because then you're doing it for yourself and you're not doing it for anybody else. And that mantra has really helped for me so that I'm not living a life of anybody else's. But if I'm not gonna clean because I'm not gonna clean right now. And that's what I'm
That's a
gonna do.
that's
Yeah.
that's a really good test actually when it comes to how you present yourself. I have struggled with the opposite. So for all of the followers who have DM'd you saying, "Oh my gosh, thank you for showing a lived-in home." I don't like a lived-in home for myself. I
Yeah.
want my home to look like it's been staged, right, ready to sell, which is completely unrealistic. But
Yes, so
I
different.
had
Yeah.
to undo that because I also grew up where things had to be in order all the time, regardless. I had to undo that and practice, right? We're talking about mindset shifts as parents. When I became a parent and I had a toddler and I was working full time and I had a very busy husband who was also working full time, we didn't have help. For me to put that kind of pressure on myself in order to have a clean everything
Yeah.
was unfair to me, was unfair to my husband, and also unfair to the toddler who, doesn't have the development at that point in time to clean on her
Yes.
own.
Yes.
So I had to unlearn and undo and practice. I literally, at one point in time, would look at the kitchen and no, the sink wasn't clean. Yes, there were dirty dishes from dinner. The kitchen or the stove top was, still had dried pieces of food. And I remember talking to myself saying, "Flora, you are exhausted. You just put Gia down. You have to get up at 5 in the morning the next day and do this all over
Yeah.
again. See 20 plus patients in clinic, the Los Angeles commute, and then do all of this again with put dinner on the table and get the kid to bed. And then who knows when your husband's coming home because he's in fellowship and on call and has a very unrealistic and unexpected schedule." I remember saying, I am choosing to choose sleep
Yes.
for myself and rest and recharge instead of perfection. And that took me some time to let go of. And I also am very, transparent online. I don't sugarcoat things because that's not human, that's not normal. But it's just funny saying that that I have to practice undoing and unlearning and letting go. It does take some time.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that you shared the opposite and the undoing because yes, I don't share my kitchen is always clean. Like meaning after every
Hmm.
meal the dishes are done, and that is
Yep.
because I don't like the smell of caked up food in the
Yes.
sink. So
Makes
I may
sense.
show pictures of my messy coffee table, but for everyone it is my fault that I don't mind it because like Flora said, it's something very important that the dishes have to be done after every meal or at the latest at the end of the day. Like we have
Yes,
never
I
maybe
agree.
once have we gone, and then also ants, right? Like, I don't want ants to come in and
Oh,
like
yes,
yeah.
the
So
answer
it's
too.
more than
Mhm.
that. But yeah, I will say the toys are the one area. Now let's get to some practical strategies. So what are some
Yeah.
practical, maybe science-backed strategies that parents can use to shift from just surviving to thriving in their parenting journey and combating burnout?
I think the most undervalued and overlooked thing is the ability to take and build in micro breaks. So
Mhm.
when we think about breaks, we talk about them in a macro level: vacations, spa days, a girls' night out, a parents' night out. But and those are all needed, don't get me wrong, right? But to work to the point of burnout until those
Yeah.
periods of time is not what we're trying to do. We're trying to prevent so we can enjoy those vacations, not
Mhm.
only use it to reset, recharge, and go back to the same environment that caused the burnout in the first place.
The
So
escape of reality, right? Like,
the escape
I
of
tell my husband
reality.
the same. Yeah, like, "I just need to escape." I'm like, "But then what are we doing
Absolutely.
to not have to escape our reality? Because that's our reality." Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, we need to live
Absolutely.
that life. Like, we can't
And
just
you're still
always plan to
going
escape.
back.
Yeah, yeah.
100%. You're still going back to the same triggers. And there is research on co-regulation. So, our children mirror our angst, they mirror
Yeah.
our satisfaction, our contentment, our calmness. So if we build that ability to regulate our system, our kids will follow. And so these micro breaks can be anything from 3 to 15 minute breaks that are built in throughout your day. And during those breaks, you are performing tasks that are resetting or
Yeah.
recharging your nervous system. So, for example, on my clinic days, I'm seeing patients back to back. I have a built in break of a 40-minute lunchtime where it gives me time to eat, but it also gives me time. Well, it takes me 10 minutes to chow down my food, but it also takes me or it gives me some time to remove myself from my workspace, my desk, my tech, and go outside and walk and
Ugh.
get movement. And sometimes I just put on my noise canceling headphones. There is no sound, no story, no podcast, no music. And I'm literally just walking and breathing, even if it's as little as 10 minutes, because sometimes our clinic days aren't as predictable. Now, on the days that I'm working for home, because I do have kind of a hybrid looking schedule, there could be times where I'm in my creative zone and I'm working, 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 and I don't even realize that 3 hours have gone by and I haven't even gotten up from this space. Not so great for mental health, maybe wonderful for productivity,
Yeah.
but I put on alarms on my phone. So if it's a creative day, I'll give myself, a block of time. But if it is a day where I just need to get through tasks, every 60 minutes, I put on a timer and I give myself 5 minutes. If it's doing box breathing to kind of regulate my heart rate, if it is doing a guided meditation, just put it on an app. Even if it's going downstairs and walking around in circles if the weather isn't so great outside, or playing with my dog, anything to remove yourself, give yourself a brain break. Those are so, so important. And it can look like anything depending on what works for you and what your work schedule is like. I had a client who only worked from home and she lived on the East Coast. So weather was sometimes a little unpredictable, but every single day, she would have 2 5-minute breaks built in and she would walk on out to her driveway and put her hands up and take 3 big deep breaths, regardless of the weather, and walk back in.
Oh,
That for her, that sounds so
yeah.
simple, right? It takes 5 minutes to maybe put on a jacket, go outside, breathe for a couple minutes, come back in and get right back to work. So it doesn't have to be super complicated. It doesn't have to be expensive and it does not have to be time consuming. And I promise you, those 5 to 15 minute breaks will increase your productivity and prevent burnout.
Like, going back to your analogy about the car, right? I mean, you are maintaining the car, you are giving yourself a little oil checks, filling the
Yes.
gas, all the things that can give you that sort of impetus to keep going. And I remember when I was in the burnout phase and having to do drop off and pick up for Ryan without any help, right? I mean, my
Yeah.
husband was, this was like in the middle of Omicron of the pandemic,
Oh,
and
geez.
everyone
Yeah.
was sick and he was working so much. And I remember like, I would actually pick up my son the last possible time, and not because, 1, I was rushing to get out, but because I just wanted to sit in my car for about 10 minutes and just listen to meditation or music, and, like,
Yeah.
I would put away my phone and just, like, close my eyes, and I would put the alarm on so I wouldn't fall asleep, and I would just listen. But I would park my car outside of his daycare pickup or childcare pickup, and I would do that, and that's why when I see some reels about, like, oh, like, the parent who was the last one to pick up, I'm like, sometimes they may need that. Like, they may
Absolutely.
need to be the last one, and that's, again, going back to your commentary about not judging yourself and understanding that that's normal, that you need that, and if those, I love it, micro breaks, micro moments give you
Mhm.
the ability to then enter that daycare or childcare facility and be there and mentally present for your child, you are building your resiliency capacity, and I love that. I love that
Absolutely.
we are, as a physician yourself, focusing on prevention. I mean, that
Yes.
is what the
I
goal
am
is
a
here, and I love that you
primary
do
care
that.
doctor, so
Yes,
preventative
same.
care is my love language. Why do we have to wait till we're feeling at the end of our limit? Why do we wait for disease when we do have the
Yes.
power to prevent? So that goes for parents as well.
And I was gonna ask you, but I think you already answered, like, self-care and all the things that we're talking about can feel like another task, right? And
Yeah.
our never-ending to-do list. And you already gave some really great ideas on how to like set timers and incorporate this into our life. Is there any way, any other tip you have on parents who are like, well, how do I incorporate this quote unquote self-care in a realistic and meaningful way?
Yeah, and you're right. Self-care can look so different for so many people, right? I have my traditional self-care activities built in. I have my monthly massages built in. I have my exercise, periods of exercise. I wake up in the morning, I move my body in whatever capacity I can, and I focus on my nutrition. Those are kind of those macro levels of self-care. But these habits can only be formed if your inner voice is fixed. And what I mean
Mhm.
by that is most of us talk so harshly to ourselves. We judge ourselves, and that negative inner voice can take over and dictate your actions and your decisions. So
Yeah.
I always advise all of my clients, my coaching clients, to name their negative inner voice, because what that negative voice is saying is not truth. To a certain extent, we all have negative voices to protect ourselves so we aren't, we don't become narcissistic humans. But in order to prevent that spiral that happens from that negative voice, we do need to speak kinder to ourselves. So my negative voice is named Evilla. Evilla is a total B. Like, she's always judging me. She's always making me feel guilty.
Yeah.
But through affirmations and through, again, separating what Evilla is saying to logic, to truth, to facts, and maybe removing a little more emotion, really helped me let go of the guilt that it takes to engage in micro breaks or those macro breaks, and truly put myself up on my own priority list and then see the benefits of it. Right? I am a better physician. I am a better partner. I am a better mom because I am regulated. And so I'm not swinging from one end of the spectrum to the other. Another thing that I really would advise is learn how to come back to your middle ground. So,
Mhm.
and this is what, coaching is all about when it comes to mindset shifts. It's important to feel your feelings, right? If something not so great happens, we're upset, we're angry, we're feeling shameful, guilty, all those negative emotions. If something wonderful happens, we're excited, elated,
Yeah.
joyful. But if we're living here, we're just swinging like a pendulum
Yeah.
back and forth. That is exhausting. That is draining. So feel what you need to feel, but do those self-care steps, right? Whether it's micro breaks or vacations or whatever, and bring yourself back to your middle ground so you can get ready for the next thing that life is going to throw at you, because that is inevitable. We can't change that.
Such great tips, and I'm so glad you're here and not Avila today. I'm really happy about that. I don't know what kind of podcast this would have been if she was here. People have been like, "Who is this bee coming on here giving all this advice?" I love it. Okay, my final couple questions for you. One of the hardest things, and I know you do a lot of work on this, is figuring out how we can set boundaries, and especially how we can ask for help without feeling guilt or fear of judgment. Because I do believe, like you said, societal pressure, all the expectations we have, all the things that you mentioned at the beginning hold us back. So, what would you say for someone who struggles to ask for help if they have those resources?
Yeah. Kind of going back to my previous answer, reframe that negative inner voice.
Hmm.
You are not holding boundaries because you have not been taught how to hold boundaries. If you've been taught how to hold boundaries, you are still not holding them because of guilt and shame and fear of judgment. So I like, again, to reframe, be in touch with yourself. Figure out what you're feeling when you're trying to hold boundaries physically, mentally, emotionally. Are your shoulders tensing up? Is your heart beating faster? Are you sweating? Are you feeling nervous? Or is that bitch Avila coming back into your brain? And is she speaking unkindly to you? And if so, those are things that you must work on. And please repeat this mantra with me. Boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are self-care. They're all these acts of boundaries are not to put walls up. They are invisible lines to guide you on how to react according to how other people are treating you.
Yeah.
So boundaries are for you, not for anybody else. And so it's really important to reframe your mindset, reframe that inner voice in order to hold those boundaries. And I also want to add that boundaries may not always be perfect. They look different for everybody in different scenarios. There may be some trial and error. Some boundaries may not go so greatly. And that's just a sign to pivot and adapt and be flexible. But tone matters, verbiage matters when holding boundaries. You need to keep them short, concise, to the point, with compassion, not only for yourself, but with who you're holding boundaries with.
And you're right. So much of it comes from our own feelings of judgment or our own feelings of,
Yeah.
well, I got to do this all or I have to be this for everybody. And I love that you brought that up earlier about one of my favorite quotes so far from this episode was you can't be everything for everybody at the same time, right? It's not
Mm-mm.
feasible, it's not possible. And I think that's why so many of us burn out, whether we are early in the parenting journey, whether you are working outside the home, is that sort of I got to do it all for everybody and I got to do it perfect for
Yeah.
everybody. And we just can't. We only have a certain number of hours in a day. And also going back to what you mentioned about the comparison, when we look at people on social and we think, well, they're doing it all, always remember that they're only showing you what they're doing. They're not showing you the help they may have. They're not showing you all the things they're not doing. So your brain is thinking everyone's doing everything and I'm just sitting here on social. No,
Yeah.
like not everyone's doing everything. And I want people to realize the reality of social and the reality of human nature. And I think you really did a
Yeah.
wonderful job bringing that together. What would be your final message for everyone listening, especially for that listener who's like, what would be my next step now going forward? So like when I'm done with this episode, I
Yeah.
should do X, Y, and Z now to help me manage my burnout or prevent it from happening in the first place.
Yes. So I want everyone to know out there that you can start preventing burnout no matter what season in life you're in. It's going to look different depending on what season. My newborn mamas, my newborn parents are going to be a
Yeah.
little bit different versus, I have a tween on my hands. My boundaries and my burnout prevention looks very different with her. But just know that starting small is progress.
Yeah.
Start small, do something very tiny. If it is, hey, I need 5 minutes to do some deep breathing, and I'm going to make this a goal to do this 5 minutes, 5 days a week. Again, we're not perfect, right? We don't have to go for 7. Start with 5. I'm going to put in a reminder on my calendar. I'm going to block out time. Do that for 3 to 4 weeks. Habits take time. None of this is going to be done tomorrow and conquered tomorrow. Start really, really small and build on them. So keep track of your progress. Put it on your schedule, block out 5 minutes, do some deep breathing or box breathing. After 3 weeks, if you've done the 5 days for 5 minutes, then build on top of that. Add on another 5 minute micro break. It and if you need help with this, I'm a coach. I'm here. I'm taking new clients. But these teeny tiny things you absolutely can incorporate into your everyday life. It does not have to be this major, overwhelming overhaul of your life. Small habits and building upon them can make really big macro changes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those little micro moments, my goal is always to try to limit or not have a phone involved, meaning
Yeah.
like social media. If your micro moment is connecting really with an amazing person, like on a phone call, fine. But like trying to have those moments, like you said, in nature, maybe taking a walk, sitting in the car. I love cars because the warmth, but also the air conditioning, like it's quiet.
Yeah.
It feels
Yeah.
so good to take a break in a car. I remember doing that a lot when I was feeling burnt out. Micro
Yeah.
moments. But Flora, thank you so much. Now, where can
Thank
people
you.
go to stay connected, learn about you, your resources, and all the things that you have to offer in this world?
Yes. So I'm primarily on Instagram at Dr. Flora Sinha. That's Dr. Flora Sinha. On my Instagram page, I share everything related to mindset. I'm also a menopause certified practitioner, so I do a lot of medical education on that. I talk about boundaries, communication, all the things so you can be the best version of yourself. I also have a website, florasinhamd.com. I also have a bunch of free resources on there if you want to connect with me via coaching and figure out what coaching is about. I do offer free discovery calls, so you can also do that through my website. And then later this year, we are going to launch a YouTube channel, so you will eventually see me on YouTube as well later in 2025.
I love it. I am so glad to attach all of these resources on our show notes and our transcripts, and you'll be able to follow along. And I hope you this was a micro moment for you, our conversation. I hope
Of
it
course.
uplifted you, and I hope that you can take some of the things that we discussed and implement it so that we can really be more present for our children and ourselves. Thank you again, Flora, for joining us today.
Thank you, Mona. I appreciate you. This was a lot of fun.
And for everyone tuning in, please make sure that you subscribe, hit that thumbs up sign if you love this conversation, add a comment, share the video. Remember, the more you engage, the more people learn about the show. And we want the show to reach more people so that they can make these impactful changes to be better parents and better humans. Thank you again, and I cannot wait to chat with another guest next time.